You know what I've come to learn about New Jersey Devils fans the past little while here? Y'all are crazy. And I say that in the best way possible. From the Lindy Ruff chants to the Lindy Ruff apologies to all the crap thrown onto the ice in the Toronto game, this fan base is insane and it is awesome. Which is why I wanted to go out there and make a video that is probably going to piss a lot of you guys off, while also giving the Canadiens fans a few laughs along the way. Don't worry, I'm not saying that this is going to happen or that it should happen. All we're doing is talking about an article that goes over this idea and the different proposals that are linked in this talk. We're going over to the Canadiens and we're talking about forward Josh Anderson, a 28-year-old, 6'3", 227-pound right-handed right-wing, left-wing player. He's signed till the end of 2027, making $5.5 million a season. Now, we had talked about Anderson recently on the channel, actually, going over the entire Max Domi trade once again, with a 2 years later perspective attached to that video. Essentially, we went over the pros, the cons, the long-term projectability, and what Josh Anderson is today. He's got 7 points in 18 games as a member of the Habs in 22-23, on pace for 31 points in 80 games and 22 goals. He's primarily been noted as a goal scorer the past few years, but it's kind of unfortunate that his goal-scoring touch that was there in 2018-19, for example, hasn't really seemed to have carried over in the best way possible. I mean, he had 27 goals in 82 games that season. He's on pace this year for a shade below that, but of course, I feel like what a lot of Canadiens fans wanted out of Josh Anderson has not really been fulfilled, but there still are 5 more years on that contract for him to prove that he can become that guy. But either way, when it comes to Anderson and the latest update that we have seen about him, he's been linked to trade rumors everywhere. Because when it comes to the Canadiens, they're kind of in a position where heading towards the trade deadline, they could decide to sell on a lot of the assets they have. Anderson happens to be one of the guys that is thrown around there the most. This is why we go over onto an article published on Montreal Hockey Now from 2 days ago. Take a look at this. There is no writer attached to the piece. It just says by Montreal Hockey Now. The New Jersey Devils are apparently very interested in this Montreal Canadiens forward. The Devils have been linked to the Canadiens all summer, but it seems that they haven't wavered their interest on one certain guy. Montreal Hockey Now reported earlier in the summer that the Devils had their sights on Josh Anderson. A well-placed NHL executive at the time believed the Devils to be interested in Anderson, but they were not ready to move the second overall pick for the power forward at the time. Wait a minute, pause. We're going to be talking about that? Second overall for Anderson? Really? That was a thing? That was discussed? No way. For such a deal to work, the source believed it would have to have been a multi-asset deal. Okay, yeah, of course. No way you're moving Josh Anderson for the second overall pick. I don't think he is worth that in the slightest. Let's continue with what else the article has to say over here. On the most recent episode of the Sick Podcast, Tony Marinaro wanted to drop a scoop regarding one of the Canadiens players that is in high demand these days, and he had this to say. One team that wants him badly, and I mean badly, because I'm sure there's a couple of teams that would take him, is the New Jersey Devils. They want Anderson badly, Marinaro said. Believe me when I tell you that. The Devils are not trading Jack Hughes, and they're not trading Nico Hischier. I don't know how much they'd be willing to give up, but they have some players that are not on this team right now. I'm talking about defenseman Luke Hughes, Simon Nemec, Alexander Holtz suggested Marinaro on a potential target for the Canadiens. They want Josh Anderson badly, and it doesn't mean that you have to do a one-for-one deal. You can spice it up by throwing in other players or other picks, but I can tell you right now, based on what I'm hearing, the Devils want Anderson badly. And this is why I said at the beginning of the video that, yeah, Devils fans, y'all are going to get pissed off about this, and Canadiens fans, y'all are going to laugh about this. Because when it comes to the names that Marinaro suggests the Devils could give up in an Anderson trade, I mean, just thinking about the idea of Luke Hughes, a 4th overall pick from 2021, a guy that you could very well debate should have gone first, getting traded for Josh Anderson. How about Simon Nemec, the 2nd overall pick from this most recent draft, a top 2 potential defenseman, alongside of Hughes, they're both kind of in that territory, for Josh Anderson. Alexander Holtz is a little bit in a different territory because he is the oldest of the bunch, and I feel like with the ups and downs that Holtz has had to face the past few years, I wouldn't be surprised if you valued Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec as players with more trade value than Holtz, but still, Alexander Holtz is a guy who, to me, if he maxes out to what he could become, he could be a 30-40 goal scorer in this league every single year if things go right. It hasn't really gone right so far, but we know that Holtz has a lot of potential, and it's really only a matter of time before he becomes what he is probably destined to becoming at the top level in the world. It's just for Anderson, I feel like if you really, just absolutely, really desperately wanted a guy like that right now to be that big power forward scoring threat, I don't know if I would rather have that or a developing Alexander Holtz on my team right now. Maybe that comment is so ill-advised to make because Alexander Holtz sucks or whatever. I know that's not the case. He was just sitting out for a long freaking time while the team went on that winning streak. He recently got sent back down, and it's going to be good for him because he needs the playing time. But if I were to go out there and try to capitalize on some goal-scoring potential, I would rather have Holtz than Anderson, all things considered. Like, I know Anderson is a better player today, but if you gave the opportunity to somebody like Holtz to get used to the NHL game and get used to the systems and start developing and adapting to this type of league, I feel like you could really be paying dividends quickly with this type of a player in the same time span that Josh Anderson is going to be making $5.5 million a year. Not to mention Simon Nemec and Luke Hughes, two guys that are bona fide top two potential prospects and who have been absolutely lighting up their respective leagues. Luke Hughes has, I think it's the goal record for all 18-year-old defenseman in the NCAA? It's kind of nuts. The guy had 17 goals last year. Now, sure, this season, his point per game is only slightly better. He's got 14 points in 14 games, but still, that's a point per game defenseman right there. And I feel like for Luke Hughes, he's also left-handed. He can also play the right, so there you go. That's a little bit of an adjustment that I feel like the Canadiens could use if you wanted to talk about this guy heading over to Montreal in some sort of a trade. But at the end of the day, I feel like New Jersey, to even think about trading Luke Hughes while having Jack Hughes on your team, that's absolute treason. That is not going to happen. That is nuts. There's no world where I feel like that is an actual possibility where Josh Anderson gets traded over for Luke Hughes of all people. In fact, if Luke Hughes does ever get traded, come on down to Vancouver Town, baby. We've got another Hughes right there that is waiting to be your D partner because Luke Schenn is not going to keep on trucking there forever. As for Simon Nemec, I feel like Nemec, he's so new in this entire thing that it's tough to talk about him in any sort of a trade-like scenario. Like, you know, the Devils are not going to trade Nemec away for anything pretty much at this point, especially if that anything is Josh Anderson. Heck, if you wanted to tell me that Anderson is worth that much, where a guy like Nemec, who has been a pretty okay defenseman in the Utica Comets system so far, is getting traded immediately after getting drafted second overall, then I'll take some of what you're having over there, my friend, because that idea is just so wild that I don't know if there's even any Canadiens fan that watched this video and said, oh, look at that, the Canadiens might trade Anderson for Hughes. They might get Luke Hughes, everybody, look at this. I don't think anybody said that. I think most of the Canadiens fans looked at this video and you were like, huh, really? No way, who said that? Lego, you're nuts, man. And no, it's not me, it's Tony Marinaro. Come on, guys. Don't gang up on me now. But either way, talk in the comments your thoughts about what would be a proper trade idea for a guy like Josh Anderson to New Jersey, especially if the Devils really want this guy. I doubt you're talking about anybody of Holtz or a Luke Hughes or a Nemec, but there are some other prospects that the Devils have in their system that I do think are quite valuable. Surely not as valuable as some of the very top guys, but there still are some names that I like. Seamus Casey is a player that I think could really fit well under the Montreal Canadiens type of role. Chase Stillman is a guy from the OHL. Dawson Mercer is an NHL player, but if you wanted to talk about guys that might get replaced if you acquire a player like Anderson, then maybe there's a name there. There are a few guys, obviously some draft picks as well, that the Montreal Canadiens could very much use if they're looking towards the long-term future, but talk in the comments either way all your thoughts about the Anderson trade proposal and what exactly you think this could look like. If you're a Devils fan, do you even want to trade for a guy like Josh Anderson? Watch the video that we made a few weeks ago talking about Anderson and Max Domi and how that kind of looks 2 years down the line, and get back to me here in this video as to whether or not you would want this type of player on your team. For me personally, if you want a goal scorer who's right-handed, just use Alexander Holtz. But if Josh Anderson really is that valuable because you like the size and you like the speed, then let me know in the comments your thoughts about that as well and what you would be willing to shell away for him. I hope you enjoyed this video, Juraj 99, and bye.